Yeah, coachable minds are also taught the concept of we versus me. And probably one of the toughest things that happens in the workplace is if two people are going for a job, one gets it, the other one doesn't. Most of the time, people who did not get that job will think of me and they'll start to come up with reasons, even to discredit the other person, even if it's a friend, so they feel better about their situation. We tend to think about how it affects us, not what's good for the team or the organization. That's a part of coachable minds as well. So when you're filled with disappointment, how are you going to handle that gracefully? When you have conflict, are you concerned about getting your point across, or are you interested in having a discussion? You know, I heard one of the greatest phrases because I'm very comfortable with conflict. I had a friend once say to me, "Do you want to have the conversation or did you want to win?" Because I was giving him the perception I wanted to win. And the argument wasn't with him. And I thought, wow, I hadn't thought of it like that. That's what a coachable mind does, is we look at those scenarios and we have to fundamentally ask, was this good for me? Was this not good for me? How do I look at this from a we standpoint? And so often we are not taught that at all. I mean, I go back to the youth sports analogy. And I would tell my kids, when you're playing sports, the coach can look down at that bench. He'll see two things. He'll see kids sitting back with their arms folded, rolling their eyes because they're concerned about me. I'm not playing. Kid leaning forward, cheering on his teammates, he'll go into the game before the other kid will. And we don't nurture that enough. So I think a lot of times when we have conflict or disagreement or discord in the workplace, we go at it with, here's my point, here's how I want to win, here's what I thought was unfair. And we come from a me centric versus we need to have this conversation so we can work cooperatively together. So in coachable minds, we'll get them thinking in that way. We'll get them looking at situations differently. That's step one. Then step two is practicing getting better at those things. So I'll give you the most fundamental example. When you have a disagreement with somebody, what happens? You're in the midst of a conversation. You're thinking about what you want to say while someone else is talking. We all do it. And if we can slow down and say, okay, here's what I've heard you say. Here's what I've heard you say. It's kind of like two people going out for lunch. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. Go have a calm lunch together and talk about issues. People laugh when I use that. Why? Because it sounds crazy. Why is it crazy to listen to each other? And I think that's where a coachable mind tends to look at things from a we perspective versus a me perspective. I'll give you one more example. When you don't get a job and your peer gets it, we teach something called the spotlight. That spotlight's going to be on you. You went for the job, you put yourself out there. Wow, you should be proud of yourself. But the spotlight's going to be on you, whether fair or unfair. And they pull you in and say, what do you mean the spotlight? I said, they're going to watch how you react. And that will go into their decision-making process the next time you're up for a promotion. Whether fair or unfair, they're going to watch you more closely than the people who didn't put themselves out there. So you have to think about we, not me. If right now you're focused on me, you may never be a part of we. And we try to get people to look at situations with a coachable mind from perspective, opportunistic. What's in it for me? What's in it for the team? How do I take myself to the next level? Those things are just traditionally not taught.
That's great. I had I had Spotlight as a line, and I was like, God, I don't remember this, so I was going to go there next. So that's great.
It's one of my favorite. I just had the conversation Friday with someone. Beth and I were up in Door County. Someone called me and she was revving up, and I said, Jane. She said, yeah. I said, take a deep breath. That spotlight's brighter, isn't it? Because she's getting her PhD. She's actually leaping ahead of the rest of her teammates, of ahead of her manager even. And I said, remember when we talked about you're now equipped with other knowledge? Are you going to weaponize it or are you going to use it gracefully? And she said, do you feel like I'm weaponizing it? I said, I didn't, but you just suggested it. And we laughed and she said, oh, is that what I'm doing? I said, I don't know. I said, just something for you to think about. She texts me Sunday morning. She goes, I haven't stopped thinking about that conversation. Unbelievable coachable mind, unbelievable and totally unappreciated at her company. And it's that spotlight is something that we tend to forget because if I'm mad at you or I'm mad at somebody and I go tell Jeff, oh, I'm ticked off at Blake. Oh, good. I got off my chest. We feel like the light's dissipated. It's not on anymore. And I always go, oh, it's on because Jeff's going to tell three other people and it's going to get to Blake and then it's going to come back to me. That relationship is ruined. And when we hit that with coachable minds, go to the source. When there's conflict, go to the source. It's going to be uncomfortable. Go to the source. Nothing has ever come well when you tell four people. Nothing. Maybe nothing happens, but it's never served anyone well. In the moment, you got it off your chest. In the moment, you feel great about it. And then you forget about it. The minute it gets to that person you're talking about, it becomes combustible. And I think that's the number one thing that really is the barrier to the workplace.